Benjamin Netanyahu, speaking at a Christian conference in Jerusalem hosted by advisor to US President Donald Trump and prominent evangelical pastor Paula White. And the reason that I want to bring this to your attention is to highlight the desperation. This was one of the reports. He's saying that, we allowed aid through the war, otherwise there would be no Gazans, according to Benjamin Netanyahu. Trying to, again, whitewash the Israeli actions in a Christian conference with one evangelical pastor. Of course, we know very well that the numbers of Christian Zionists globally are much bigger than the numbers of Jewish Zionists. That's number one. However, it is extremely misleading to think that the same numbers that we saw 2 or 3 years back, even if we want to talk about the evangelical community, are the same. How? Recent polls in the past 2 years showed a huge shift coming from within the evangelical community, whether it's the younger generation or the older generations too, against the evangelical ideas, or at least the evangelical movement, because some people refer to them, by the way, as evangelical without directly belonging to a movement that calls itself an evangelical movement, or any of these televangelical or televangelists, right? Who have lots of a huge following on television. What is Benjamin Netanyahu doing here, and what is he trying to gain? Netanyahu is trying to counter the huge shift that is happening not only from within the Christian world, by the way, but globally. And he is particularly concerned with the last hope that he has amongst the Christian Zionism movements inside of the United States. Because the United States is the most important country for Israel in relation to public opinion. The Israelis view the United States as a threat in many ways. Any move in the public opinion of American people is considered to be a threat by Israel, and from their perspective, from an Israeli perspective, they can't handle a situation where the Americans are saying, that's it, we no longer believe in you. So what is he trying to do here? And this was one other report, by the way, I'll share this with you about this meeting. He's trying to push this Judeo-Christian facade, right? What they call Judeo-Christianity, and revive Christian Zionism that is dying with the general Zionist movement and on its way to oblivion, by the way, to the dustbin of history. He's trying to have some sort of revival and try and appeal to those still susceptible of manipulation from Benjamin Netanyahu. Sitting there with Paula White, we cherish our Christian friends. You cherish your Christian friends? Zionists spit at Christian pastors and Christian churches in Jerusalem, whether it's Jehovah's Witnesses or even evangelicals. They spit at them. They curse them when they walk in the streets of Jerusalem. They just bombed the Catholic Church in Gaza. They killed 2 of its workers. Not that I even like to speak about this, by the way, this, them targeting Christians or not. We talk about human beings as a whole, but he's trying to appeal because these people are experts in divide and conquer and, bringing people apart or, tearing people apart, splitting people and trying to make it out as if, we're somehow one. And he's again using, oh, we're against Islamic extremism and Islamic terrorism. We saw exactly who is the mother and father and grandfather and mother of terrorism. He's trying to revive that garbage and Islamophobia, because many in the right wing are having a shift, which is another big problem for Israel. Right-wing figures inside of the United States and in Europe too, going against Israel with the Islamophobia card not working. What's happening? So he's trying to revive that with a couple of very wealthy, heavily paid off evangelical leaders, right? Again, despite the fact that there's a huge shift even within the evangelical community. I mean, me personally, I've received communication from people in the evangelical community, young and old, by the way, totally 180. What is he going to do exactly? What is it? Where is that going to lead to? That's not going to lead anywhere. Benjamin Netanyahu trying to appeal to Christians. Firstly, the Christian world is starting to slowly wake up from the Zionist infiltration. Since the end of the 19th century. God's chosen people, and we're supposed to be higher than you somehow, right? And this land belongs to Israel, and from the Schofield Bible moving forward. So from his perspective, the shift in public opinion coming from Western populations was bad enough, let alone that shift coming from traditional Zionist Christian movements. Like many people within the Christian communities or Christian Zionist communities or places where they follow some of these evangelical movements, are speaking about a shift of people constantly acting, people constantly moving. Of course, they will be facing problems. Why? Because the most difficult thing to argue with a person about is his religious belief. Because, you have a term called the spiritual truth. You can come with evidence and you can try and convince, but if someone is convinced in that and they're not interested in listening, tell you, thank you very much, but this is what I believe, and that's how we've been, and that's it, and done deal. So Christians who oppose Christian Zionism, like every human should oppose Zionism altogether, they do face challenges, but they also see successes. And the longer this genocide went, the more eyes got opened to the whole narrative of Zionism, to a level where people started to criticize some of the leaders of this community. And they could no longer hide behind the fact that they are a religious figure, or, a middleman between man and God. There are no middlemen between a human being and his creator. There's direct communication. But they're trying to plant themselves there purely for financial greed, manipulation, control, and to support this ideology and the militaristic oligarchy all in all, and show that, we have to. Why? Because the religion tells us to do so. Yet another pathetic attempt coming from Benjamin Netanyahu, although he still finds people who are shameful enough to see him and meet with him in the name of any religion, by the way. But it shows you the state of desperation. These people are desperate. The situation for Israel is becoming increasingly worse and worse with time. And all of these acts by Benjamin Netanyahu are showing you the true level, the real level of how delegitimized the country is and how awful the situation is for the state of Israel in general.